here in the U.S., we have House Republicans who are now pushing a bill to reverse the president's freeze on certain weapons for Israel. Now, this whole thing is likely dead on arrival in the Senate. But the thing it would do politically is force Democrats in the House to vote on an issue that is already dividing their party. Paul Rieckhoff joins us, host of the Independent Americans podcast. I'll put the headline up here from Axios. Democrats rage at the GOP over a quote-unquote tough vote. This happens all the time in politics. Is it really a tough vote? Do you feel bad for them?
No, but I think it's going to be tough for Biden. And I think backing up a step, I think what you're seeing is Netanyahu has a house divided as well. Israel's not united, and the seams are kind of coming apart.
It's true. We didn't hear about that for a while.
No,
right? But now we're hearing more and more about it.
Yeah, I mean, to have your defense minister openly criticizing the leader is a big move. And you're seeing that division. You're seeing Netanyahu's popularity fall. And Biden's trying to split the difference on all this. He's trying to make Netanyahu happy. He's trying to make the left in his party happy. He's making nobody happy. Come back to the U.S., where his own party is now divided. And I think all this, really the big winner is Trump.
Yeah.
Right? This continues to help Trump, who has a GOP that tends to be more and more united, while the Democrats continue to be more and more deeply divided, especially around Israel and Gaza, which we also saw in the primary results last night.
So if you're asking, if we were asking a simple question then about our own presidential election, for President Biden to win re-election, does he need this to be wrapped up? If this war is still going on the way it is, or heading towards a conclusion? Maybe.
Yeah, if you could wave a magic wand and end it, absolutely. But I wouldn't put any money on that right now. This isn't going to end anytime soon. It's likely to get worse. We're actually lucky it's been as contained as it has been. Hezbollah hasn't really engaged from the north. This could have overflowed into other countries. So they've been keeping a lid on it. But I would not expect this war to end anytime soon. And if I had to predict, that it's going to have a hard time keeping a lid on it over the next few years.
No, you're probably
This is
right.
not going to wrap up quick. This could look like Ukraine a year or two from now.
Right. And it takes different forms. I mean, it's going on for years and years, even when it's not as active as it is now. Obviously, the issue is not going away.
Right.
It hasn't for decades. Let's talk about the race in more detail, the race for president. We always ask you about RFK, whether you want to be asked about it or not. You're Mr. Independent. Let me put up some numbers here there it is on the graph here. If the 2024 election were held today, who would you vote for? The RFK numbers in the swing states, 12% Nevada, 10% Pennsylvania, 10% Arizona, 9% Georgia, as he works on getting on these ballots. He's making progress, by the way, on some of these ballots. I also want to put up what he put on social media today, his post on X after the debates were announced, okay? And then we'll talk about it all. Here's what he said. They're trying to exclude me from their debate because they're afraid I would win. Keeping viable candidates off the stage undermines democracy. If Americans are ever going to escape the hammerlock of the two-party system, now's the time to do it. That last part you probably agree with to some extent, but what about this? Because those numbers, even though it's not nothing, are not enough to get over the threshold that's been put on these debates.
I want to talk about RFK Jr. because I think it's maybe the most underreported story in this entire election cycle. He is the X factor. Whether you like him or not, he's polling significantly in key swing states. He seems to be getting some momentum in key areas in the national media, and he wants on the stage. Now, look, I'm no fan of him personally, but I'm also no fan of them closing out other voices. I think if you can get a significant amount of support, which third-party candidates have in the past, we think back to Ross Perot, you should be on the debate stage. The debates shouldn't be controlled just by the two parties.
And to be clear, they're not saying he's out. They're just putting the threshold at a point, as I understand it right now, I think it's 15%, where he probably wouldn't make it. It might not be on enough ballots because they're going to have an early debate, 27th of June.
Right. I mean, they're setting a bar that he probably can't hit.
Exactly.
Which is what they did for Gary Johnson in the past. It's what they've done for other third-party candidates. And I actually helped create a forum back in 2016 with Trump and Clinton. We tried to get them both on the same stage to debate veterans issues.
Okay.
Gary Johnson wanted on that stage. We actually wanted Gary Johnson on that stage. If people didn't want Gary Johnson on that stage, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. The parties do not want that third-party candidate involved in these conversations. That is true. If it were up to me, I'd open it up to all the voices. Let the American people decide, because what we see in every single poll and every single primary is they're ticked off at everybody.
And Johnson didn't make it to that stage.
He didn't. Correct.
He didn't. And they've been able, that's what the two parties have done for years. They've been able to control this because of how the rules are.
But Ross Perot did, right? And Ross Perot got close to 20%. It
was really the only time.
Yeah, and you have to think back, right? If not for Ross Perot, you probably don't have Bill Clinton.
No.
If not for Ralph Nader, you probably don't have President Bush. I mean, the third-party candidate won't win. That's where Kennedy's wrong. He's not going to win this, but he can absolutely upset the apple cart, and he can be the key difference maker in key swing states.
And you don't have
one of them determines the entire election.
He doesn't have to be on that stage, by the way, to do what you're saying. I mean, he's already in the polls enough to maybe have an impact. What about what happened today, though, with Trump and Biden suddenly saying, all right, let's do this. They have two debates on the calendar already. What do you make of it?
It's locked. I mean, this is what they've been building toward all along. I don't think that Kennedy will get on the stage. He might get on more ballots, but ultimately this is the matchup that we've all been looking for, dreading, right? I think the other questions are like, is Biden going to be healthy enough to be there? Is Trump going to be in a courtroom? All these X factors, I think, are still on the table, and we don't know how the two of them are actually going to look when they get up there. We've been seeing them separate for so long. Seeing them opposite each other is the big master fight everybody wants to see, but at the same time, you don't want to see. It's kind of like a car crash, right? It's the great American car crash. That's going to be these two debates that we're all going to be forced to watch. We're going to be dissatisfied with our options, and we're going to be popping our popcorn.
Do you agree with what our earlier guests were saying, that Biden essentially needs this more, and that's why he said what he said today and started it off with the challenge?
I don't know if he needs it more, but I think he's predicting that Trump will be Trump, which is unpredictable. He hasn't been as disciplined as he's been in the past in the courtroom and outside the courtroom. I think Biden's made a lot of miscalculations. Trump has tended to dominate these kinds of forums. So if Biden's not bringing his A game, I would put my money on Trump owning the conversation and pushing him around.
That doesn't always win you the night. I mean, it was interesting last time, that first debate, which was the one we showed with Chris Wallace was moderating. Yeah, Trump dominated in terms of he was yelling and screaming, but the reviews afterwards and the polling data afterwards didn't necessarily show that he gained a lot, as I remember.
I think that's what Biden's betting on.
Yeah.
Biden's betting on that he'll look nicer, he'll look more respectable, he'll look like the lesser of two evils. That's their calculation, and we'll ultimately see it. Independents, as always, are going to be the determining factors. Those debates are not focused on everyone. They're focused on a couple thousand independents in a couple key swing states, and they're going to be the difference in all this.
I'm surprised you're this well informed after being so focused on the Knicks in recent weeks, but you still know your politics.
I mean, I could talk about the Knicks all day.
Knicks in 6, Knicks in 7. What are you picking here?
Knicks could go all the way. I'm betting on the Knicks much more than I am on Biden or Trump. I mean, that's an easier pick.
Let's get through Indiana. All right, thank you, Paul. We'll see you soon. Paul Rykoff with us, as he is this week. Now, we're in the